All right, so what I want to talk about today, and we've been talking about this before, but I got a new way to explain it. So we're going to talk about true rejection. True rejection. And I'm going to teach you a way to truly achieve this point. Thomas Crooks, I need your assistance. Can you come up here for a minute? I want you to come up here because I won't be able to hear you from back there because the microphones are all good. Come on up here. Now, something I want to share with y'all about Thomas Crooks is there's no question he's one of the best in the company at time investment. If this man doesn't sit in the house for 4 hours, it's because something in the house didn't let him. I'm telling you, he's all the time at 3.5, 4.5 hours. So you ran a lead, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, but you ran a lead. You were in there 4.5 hours. You MOD'd at least a couple of times. I think your high was at 34, 35. Your low was at 26. And in your disposition, this was the guy who was some kind of military engineer or whatever. And he said, you remember this guy, don't you? And he said he had a process on big projects. Isn't that what he told you? So what was the most frustrating thing for you in that house?
His wife wanted to move forward, and he was just, no matter what, he was as rigid as a brick. And even when I MOD'd, it was still, no, just the 1 year. That's something just in the beginning. That's how I do it every single time. And every single time, this is what I do.
So if he was just the 1 year, what was the conversation you used to get the incentive in front of him and to get down to your major close and your drops? How did you present that to the man?
Bringing his wife more involved, getting his wife involved, and playing on her.
Okay, and so you were able to get the incentives in front of him. So at the end, at the 4.5 hours, you finally you were out of discounts. You just couldn't go anywhere else. All right, thank you very much. All right, Thomas, sit down. I want to talk about this because I think that's a very common story, isn't it? We spend all this time, we got one that wants it, one that has a process, and we can't get there, and we finally run out of discounts, and we run out of things to say. And I mean, I obviously didn't quit 4.5 hours, all right? But eventually just ran out of steam. So we're going to talk about that running out of steam. One close I would like you to start reading is, that would have been a perfect scenario to me at some point in that process. This isn't what we're going to talk about, but just with what you said, is to do the Grasso ping pong close. Do you remember the ping pong close? So the ping pong close, and so the wife really wants it and the husband doesn't. So I would do it in this order. I would have said, John, do you mind if I asked your wife a question? No, sure, go ahead. Mary, if John told you that he absolutely wanted this Kohler shower in the house and he felt completely comfortable with the affordability, would you stop him from getting the shower? And of course, she's going to say, no, I wouldn't stop him. And say, Mary, do you mind if I ask John a question? No, go ahead. John, if Mary told you she absolutely wanted to have this shower in her home, it was the shower of her dreams, and she felt completely comfortable with the affordability, would you stop her from getting the shower? That's bold, right? That's what we're talking about. You've got to be willing to be bold, because now the man might say, yeah, but that, that's what we're dealing with anyway. But I'm definitely going to make him say that. We're going to see how bold he's willing to be. See how, huh? He would have said it, huh?
Yeah.
He's just a mean man.
He wouldn't hesitate.
That's where,
So, yes,
but that's where your tie downs and your free close comes into play, right?
absolutely.
Because no matter what he says, he committed earlier that had it fit into my budget, this is something I would do, right? So no matter what process you have, he's thinking about spending the difference between his budget and your price.
Well, and even, and I absolutely agree with you, Lee, but even if the guy, when you try and do the, if you go outside, folks, please leave the door cracked so I don't have to stop. Even if you have to, you do your pre-qualifying and the guy's like, he won't give that to you. I don't know, I have a process. then you open mind them. But I still am adamant that what I'm about to show you will literally cut by more than half. I've got to think about it. Would it work with this particular guy? I don't know. I wasn't in the house. Thomas was there 4.5 hours. I'm not saying it's going to work with every single one, but this will literally cut it in half. This is what I mean by going for true rejection. So we know when we start picking up the phone to make MOD calls, if you are picking up the phone for your first MOD call and you're not sitting at 100% of one click, shame on you, and your manager should get your attention. Because the point of the MOD calls is for us to have negotiating room with these people. Don't pick up your manager and be sitting at 85%. Well, don't do it. There's nothing the manager can do for you. You present retail, you qualify, you give them that initial visit incentive for the major close, maybe do a ping pong close or an add subtract multiplier or a return on investment. If you're right there, you could do 2% for military and 2% for senior citizen or medical needs or something like that. But then at that point, you're picking up the phone. You need to be at 96 or 100% of one click as you're making that first MOD call. All right. Now, so you've got these 3 discounts from 3 MOD calls. And I want to focus on this technique with the porch light close. Now, you can do the porch light close at any point in this process. But what do I train you? Where do I train you to do it if you haven't done it?
Manager special.
At the manager's, in other words, all right, the first question I have is, are you completely committed to doing the porch light close every single time you're in the home? Because until you start using it every single time, you cannot cut I want to think about it in half. Let me say it again. The key to this technique, to cutting I want to think about it in half, has to do with the porch light close. So we're going to talk about this porch light close in 2 different spots. Let's start where I told you, if you haven't used it before, you're doing it at that last drop. So the key to the porch light close and eliminating I want to think about it is you've got that last incentive, the manager special, and you look at the folks and you go, listen, if they've seen you call your manager 2, 3, 4 times at this point. Listen, folks, this is as good as it's ever going to get for Energy Max and Remodel USA windows. This is as good as it's ever going to get. I'm going to show you what I managed to talk my manager into. And I don't win this battle very often, but I've won it today. And if it's worth a little extra money to have the quality of a Remodel USA installation with the background checks and the screening and the way we incentivize their pay and the insurance and the structure in our concierge program, because we care so much about your experience, and it's worth a little bit more to get this quality product, a one-time solution, then let's do it. And if it doesn't work for you, don't. Because ultimately, while I want to do right by you and do right by my company, it's not going to have any impact on me one way or the other, whether you do this project. Not one. John, Mary, can you say no? And she's going to nod her head yes, that she can say no. I see we got a yes there too. John, can you say no? Well, I sure can. All right. So talk about this. I know y'all need to. I'm going to go carry some of my kits out. I'm going to check my text messages. Flip the porch light when you're ready to tell me what you decided. And I walk out the door, and I don't care what they're saying to me. I walk out the door. Now, we all know this is the magic of how this works. What I'm about to go do here. We all know that sometimes you come in from the porch light, and they don't give you a yes or no. They still say, they still got to think about it, Harold. We talk. We got to think about it some more. I'm sorry, bud. I just can't give you a decision tonight. And you know what I'm going to look at him? I'm going to look at him and go, that's not what we agreed to. I'll be back outside. I didn't get a chance to finish checking all my messages. And I'm going to, y'all come get me when you're done. And I'm going to walk out back out the door. And they'll call me back in. the second time. And they're gonna say, you know what, Harold, we still need to. Right, we just don't have enough time. We can't make a decision like this tonight. And I'm going to, and you don't have to do this part. This is Harold's personality coming out. The first part you don't have to do, I would. But your second part is the part I want you to focus on. But the first part is I'll be like, is that your pickup truck out there, John? Yeah. You go to work at 8 tomorrow morning, right? Okay. I'm gonna go pull my car up behind that pickup truck. I got a pillow in it. And when you come out tomorrow morning to go to work, before I let you out, you're gonna do two things. You're gonna bring me breakfast because I'm grumpy without breakfast. And you're gonna give me a yes or no answer because I can't leave here until you do. Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. And this is the part you gotta do. John, repeat after me. I am never, ever gonna buy a cola shower from you, Harold. Say that to me. Say that. Say, I am never, ever going to buy a cola shower from you, Harold. And you know what most people will say when you say that to them? They don't want to say that. They're literally going to look at you and go, I'm not going to tell you that. Okay, Mary, you say it. And generally, I'm actually going to start with Mary because you know she's going to be the one. I'm not going to tell you that. I don't want to say that. I'll go, Mary, repeat after me. I will never, ever buy a cola shower from you, Harold. I'm not going to say that. How about you, John? Now, John won't say it now that Mary wouldn't say it. You're going to be shocked with how many people aren't willing to tell you no. And then as soon as they say that, I'm not going to tell you that. Well, welcome to Cola. And he's going to go, no, we're not. John, repeat after me. I will never, ever buy a cola shower from you, Harold. I'm not going to tell you that. Welcome to Cola. You have something to say, Danny?
Yes, sir. Question. So when you guys get a phone call and they're saying that the salesperson's threatening to not let me leave or leave the house until I tell them.
I'm going to buy that salesman dinner.
Okay.
So listen, my point is this. If you can get somebody, you literally are going to make fun of this person into a decision. I do not care. When I told them, ultimately, folks, it doesn't matter to me whether you get it or not. I mean, I want to do right by you and I want to do right by my company. But I want you to decide if you want to get the quality of the product and Remodel USA's experience, then let's do it. And if you decide not to, that's okay too. Ultimately, it's not going to influence me one way or the other.
So this is happened the other day with David Showman. We did an MOD call. And I even talked to the customer for a little bit. And he was adamant about, oh, I can come back and get that price. And again, that's something that the salesman should have dealt with better. But after I did that, I said to David Showman, I says, you know what? I said, right in front of him, what I want you to do is take that one-day price. I want you to rip it up in front of him. You know what he did? He said, whoa, don't do that.
Yeah,
That's exactly what he said.
exactly.
And, you know, because I wanted him to realize that this was tonight. This was the today only price. And by him ripping it up, I think he got the point
We
across.
got the message across.
Got the point across. Sometimes, again, you have to be that bold.
So I want to go back to this. I promise you that if you will do this with a porch light closed and you come back in and they say, we still got to think about it. And you go back and forth a couple of times to get your point across. And then when you're back in, you've walked out 3 times, you're back in. Look at them. Start with her and go, Mary, repeat after me. I will never, ever buy windows from Remodel USA. Say it. Now, some of them are going to say no. And that's okay because you know what they're not saying anymore. I need to think about it. Because the most frustrating thing for all of us as salespeople is when they won't make a damn decision. They won't decide one way or the other. If you could take every I want to think about it you heard and just, let's say, 10 or 15% of them still said, I want to think it. They're just hard option of people. You're not going to get rid of every one. But then all the other I want to think about it's, if you could have gotten 35 or 40% of those turned into yeses, how much money would that be worth to you? A lot. A lot. You need to be bold. Now, if you're going to do this, you got to get strong commitments, don't you? You better get strong commitments in the house. You can't walk past your company or your product commitment You got to do a pre-close. Maybe you have to open mind them if you're in front of somebody like Thomas was, but I'm still going to do the pre-close because they have to hear it. They have to hear where I'm going with this. And then I'm going to be bold. The point I'm making is you are frustrated. I want to sell more. I want to close more. I want to make more money. Yes, absolutely. And you hate when you say, I want to think about it because they wouldn't decide. Get it out of your mind that you need an I want to think about a person to buy from you. You need an I want to think about a person to decide. That's what true rejection is. It's not that true rejection is you committing to they're going to decide. And at 4.5 hours, that man and wife were still sitting at that table having a conversation with them. I don't care what the man was saying. He was still talking to Thomas at 4.5 hours later. It gives you the right to be strong and bold with that man. And if it blows up in your face, great. You know what you aren't feeling is that frustration of I want to think about it after being 4.5 hours. He, like Nick says, he starts lying, so he gets upset because he has to start lying and it falls apart, and so be it. I don't care. Let's take this thought now that we've talked about what we're going to do, because I don't want anybody here to misunderstand me. We talked about doing the technique down here. This tell me you'll never, ever buy windows from me, Bill and Mary. And then here I'm at the end of my rope. I'm at 82% discounted. There's no more money left. And I asked them to tell me no, and they told me no. They made a decision, and I'm gone. Let's say you decided to use the porch light close up here. You know, these are the perfect candidates for the porch light close. So you're calling it social media, you're sitting at 92% of one click, and you're going to do the porch light close, and you go out and they come in. Oh, we got to think about it. Now you got to make a decision one way or the other, John and Mary. Y'all need to talk a little more. You go back out, they come back in, they say, I still got to think about it. And you look at them and go, repeat after me, Mary. I will never, ever get my cabinets done by Remodel USA. Oh, no, I'm not going to say that. John, repeat after me. I will never, ever. No, you're right. We're never, ever going to get the cabinets done by Remodel USA. I can say that. So, but that's not true rejection because I'm here.
Right.
So now I just continue my same plan. What have I taught you to do when you don't close with social media? I've taught you to start putting a little bit more stuff away and then qualify for the flex install. So I start, okay, folks, we're great enough. John, thank you, buddy. Now I can get on this 1.5-hour drive home and call it a day. I appreciate you making the decision to being straight with me. So what are y'all going to do this weekend? Fantastic. That ought to be a lot of fun. You know, just one more thing. And I hesitate to bring this up, but I think I need to bring it up because of where you're at. We've got a program that I don't get to offer very often. And then when I do, hardly anybody qualifies for it because you have to be able to meet 5 conditions to qualify for this program. I'll tell you what the first one is, because this is the one that usually messes everybody up. On a job like yours, we're going to be out here in 10 to 11 weeks to do an installation. I want to know if you can open that window up a little bit. Could we come as early as 8 weeks or as late as 14 weeks? Can we open that up? Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. And then I go right to a piece of paper and I qualify them for the 5 conditions of a flex install. And then I call my manager flex install. The fact that I porch lit here and did this, just tell me no, and he said no, doesn't mean it's true rejection because I got more stuff to do. So I just pick up the game where I left off and keep on rolling and pick it right up with the flex install. And that's on YouTube too. I'm not going to do the flex install here because I want to stay focused on these 2 key points you're doing today. But you can watch the YouTube video flex install and see exactly how you can roll into it. If you will commit to when you're bottomed out or when you're doing the porch light close, and if you come in and they say, yeah, we've talked about it, and you're right, maybe you come in after doing it here at social media, and you come in and they go, all right, Harold, we've talked about it. We've decided we're not going to do it. Okay, fair enough. Like I said, I respect that completely. It's been great having you being out here. Let me get things packed up and I can start this 1.5-hour drive home that I've got. And then after 2 or 3 minutes, I roll right into the flex install. because I'm not done. I'm not done. But if you will commit to when somebody says, I want to think about it, tweak it, tweak it, tweak it, make them say it 2 or 3 or 4 times where they're just agonizing over it. They won't tell you no, but they can't tell you yes. And then look right at them and go, Mary, just repeat after me. I will never, ever buy a cola shower from you, Harold. Say that, Mary. I'm not going to say that. And I'll literally go, and then I'll ask him, and he's not going to say it either. She said, and I go, okay, welcome to Kohler. Oh, we're not doing it today. Okay, repeat after me. I will never, ever buy a cola shower from you, Harold. I'm not going to say that. Welcome to Kohler. And I'm going to do that over and over again until they do what? Say yes or no. They're going to get the message if I keep doing that. And they're going to hear how silly they sound. They're going to hear how silly they sound the 4th, 5th, or 6th time. Here they are not wanting to tell me no, and I'm trying to welcome them to Kohler, and they're going to realize how silly they sound. Nick, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it falls back on, first of all, the first thing I want to say is, all this is awesome that Harold's saying, but I want to reiterate the point that if you don't do a good presentation, if you don't get the commitment throughout the presentation, it doesn't work, right? So that's key. At the end of the company story, at the end of price conditioning, at the end of your product demo, you have to get those commitments from the customer that's in the training manual so that you can turn around and then hold that customer accountable. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what Harold is saying essentially is to get more yeses, you got to get more no's, right? I mentioned that last week as a tip. The reality is that actually very few times does a customer tell us no, right? The average to poor salesperson leaves houses constantly and never actually gets no. They accept, I want to think about it. I got to talk to my uncle's brother. I got to do X, Y, or Z. So rarely do we actually hear no. I mean, if most of you think back in the last 2 weeks, how many times did a customer say, I'm not buying it or said no to you? It's generally very, very few times, right? So if you want to get more yeses, what Harold's doing is forcing them to say no. What you're doing is let's say right now, 20% of the time, let's just say your average, 20% of the time you're getting yeses, 10 or 15 or 20% of the time you're getting no's, but the reality is 60, 70% of the time you're getting maybes or I need to think about it, right? So if you drive them all where your goal is to get them to tell you no, that 20% that you get yeses on is going to go up to 25, 30, 35, 40. Right? That's the key. The key is not to accept maybe. The other thing I'll interject, and I just want to remind everybody, I'm going to call what Harold just taught the reverse ping pong close, because you're using it after the fact. I want to reiterate the purpose of the original ping pong close. So when you're presenting that customer and you get to the today price, and you have that customer that looks at the other one and says, what do you think? Right? And the other one looks back at you and says, well, and I don't know, hun, what do you think? You need to actually interject there, right? Because what's going to happen if neither of them said we should do it, right? They gave a, what do you think? What do you think? It ain't going to go positive. The next thing is going to be, well, I think we need to think about it, right? Almost 100% of the time. So right there's your point that you then interject and say, oh, whoa, folks, time out. Let me ask you a question, right? And you're going to pull up, and then if you haven't done it, I'm going to pull it up in front of me, your ping pong close. You want to say time out. I completely understand how you both feel right now. This is a large investment. I know you both really care about each other and want to make a choice and want to make the choice to hire Remodel USA together, right? I truly feel what makes a lasting marriage is communication, is everything in a nation. Let me ask you a quick question. Mary, can I ask John a quick question? The key here is to ask the opposite person permission, right? Mary, may I ask John a quick question? She'll say, of course. John, if you knew without a doubt that Mary was ready to move forward with this project and was completely comfortable, would you also feel comfortable getting it started? And I always start, if it's a Mr. and Mrs., always start that way. Always start with the guy, because he's going to be very unlikely that he's going to turn around and say, no, if Mary wants to do it, I'm not doing it, right? He has to have pretty big balls to do that. So turn it around and hold it. John, if you knew without a shadow of a doubt that Mary was ready to move forward and completely comfortable, would you also feel comfortable in getting started? Right? Most of the time he's going to say yes. That's great to hear. Now, John might ask Mary a question. Sure. Right? So you're going to follow around with the same question. Mary, if you knew John was completely comfortable and ready to move forward with the project, you'd feel comfortable as well, right? They'll make a commitment. I think you just answered your own hesitations. Congratulations. You guys are going to love your new shower system, windows, kitchen remodel, whatever it is, right? So don't forget to use it on the front end, because if they close because you use the ping pong really where it's designed to be used, it's great. Now with Harold, basically you're combining what he just talked about with a doorknob close, and I'm going to call it the reverse ping pong close. So we just added a new close, Harold.
That's right.
So that's what I'd say on it. I think the ping pong close is actually one of the, when you have that customer that has a good response to you, it's one of the strongest things you can do, right? Most of the time you don't have to discount anymore. You know, you can button the deal up, and customers, it makes the customers feel like they decided to buy, right? The strongest deal is always the customer. And I always want to emphasize that you go through as many closes as you can that are, that have the feel like the least amount of pressure before you get to, you know, really hard holding them accountable. I think sometimes maybe we listen to this and we go there too quick. The reason that you hear everybody talking about 3, 4, 5 hours in the house is they didn't start out with beat the customer over the head close, right? They start out with a great presentation. They start out with a ping pong close. They start out with slowing down the price presentation, you know, and doing these things in order that Harold's laying out. So I'll turn it back over to you, Harold.
All right, fantastic. So,
Hey, Harold,